From Neural Newscast, this is Nerfed, where games, culture, and strategy intersect.
Nerfed, the Korean front and the end of Guardians. I am Vanessa Calderon, and this week, the industry isn't just moving fast, it's hitting the reset button on everything from game engines to legendary RPGs.
And I'm Marcus Shaw. We've got a lot to unpack, from Activision finally dropping the hammer on Modern Warfare 4 to Bungie fans basically staging a digital sit-in. It's a heavy week for news, but let's get into it.
Let's start with the big one. Yesterday, Activision and Infinity Ward officially confirmed Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 is launching October 23rd. We're heading to the Korean peninsula for a full-scale invasion story, and honestly, the grit level looks like it's been dialed up to 11. This isn't just a tactical shooter anymore. The trailer showcased a level of geopolitical tension we haven't seen in the series for a decade. They are leaning heavily into the 2026 political landscape, with urban combat scenarios set in Seoul and the DMZ that look terrifyingly realistic. It's clear they want to reclaim that crown of the definitive military sim light, and the initial footage of the night raids shows off global illumination tech that makes every previous entry look like a cartoon. The narrative focus seems to be shifting away from global globetrotting and more toward a concentrated, high-stakes conflict that feels uncomfortably close to home.
The setting is huge, Vanessa, but the tech is what has me interested. They're introducing something called Ballistic Authority. Basically, they've rebuilt the gunplay to remove bloom entirely. Every shot tells the truth now. If you miss, it is because your aim was off, not because a random number generator decided your bullet should stray. This is a massive shift for competitive play. Plus, we're finally seeing a commitment to the new hardware. It's skipping PS4 and Xbox One, which is a relief for those of us wanting to see what these machines can really do. However, the biggest shocker is the confirmation for the Switch 2. It seems Activision is serious about that 10-year commitment to Nintendo. They are promising that Ballistic Authority will function identically on the handheld, which suggests the Switch 2 has some serious horsepower under the hood if it can handle the physics calculations required for this new engine.
Which is wild, considering the Switch 2 version details are still coming later this summer. We've also got Captain Price going rogue again because, of course he is. It is almost a series tradition at this point. But the context here feels different, involving a shadow government plot that ties back to the original 2019 reboot. But Marcus, did you see the kill block map? Over 500 configurations in a single map using modular sections? The geometry literally shifts between rounds based on which team controlled certain zones in the previous phase. That's going to be a nightmare for people trying to memorize lanes. You can't just rely on muscle memory for a 3-lane setup when the middle lane might turn into a vertical sniper nest or a closed-off corridor mid-match. It forces a level of adaptability that COD has historically lacked in its standard multiplayer modes.
It's definitely going to keep the meta shifting. No more camping the same corner for 6 months. And speaking of shifting, it looks like Microsoft is sticking to that promise of content parity for Nintendo, even if it's a generation late for some. It shows they are playing the long game with these acquisitions. But while Activision is ramping up and looking toward a massive Q4, Bungie is, well, it's a rough scene over there. We are watching the slow-motion sunsetting of a titan. It feels like the end of an era for the live service model that defined the last decade. They have been the gold standard for so long, and seeing them struggle to find their footing with new IP while their flagship title reaches its terminal point is genuinely distressing for the community.
Rough is an understatement. Last week, Bungie announced they're ending content updates for Destiny 2 after the June 9th Monument of Triumph drop. They're pivoting everything to Marathon, which, according to the news, only has about 10,000 daily players right now. Not exactly the Destiny killer they were hoping for. To go from millions of active Guardians to a 5-figure player base on your next big thing is a catastrophic trendline. The internal morale must be at an all-time low. Marathon was supposed to be this bold, stylized extraction shooter that captured the zeitgeist, but instead, it feels like it's shouting into a void. The pivot feels desperate. Especially when you consider that the Monument of Triumph is basically a glorified clip show of the last 12 years. It's a funeral masquerading as a celebration, and the players know it.
The community is devastated, Vanessa. There's a movement on Reddit right now, led by fans like W1NDS0R, planning to flood the servers on June 9th just to crash them. They want to show Sony that Destiny is still the more valuable IP by literally breaking the infrastructure with sheer passion. It is a digital sit-in of the highest order. There's even a petition for Destiny 3 with over 265,000 signatures. People are begging for a reason to stay in this universe. But Bungie seems determined to move on to a game that the market has already largely rejected. It's a bizarre disconnect between a studio and its most loyal supporters. If Marathon doesn't see a massive influx of players after this pivot, I don't see how the studio survives in its current form under the Sony umbrella.
And while the fans are grieving, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick is basically doing a victory lap. He recently mentioned at a conference that former Rockstar employees haven't been able to match GTA's success. He didn't say the name, but we all know he's talking about Mind's Eye being a buggy flop and the subsequent layoffs at Build a Rocket Boy. It was a pointed jab at Leslie Benzies and anyone else who thought they could replicate the Rockstar magic without the Rockstar bankroll. Zelnick is essentially saying that the talent is replaceable, but the brand is eternal. It is a cold corporate outlook, but looking at the sales data for Mind's Eye, it is hard to argue with the results. The game launched with so many technical hurdles that it never really stood a chance, proving that even industry legends need more than just a good reputation to build a AAA blockbuster from scratch.
Zelnick has never been one to mince words about the competition. It's brutal out there. Even Sony is cleaning house, announcing that Destruction All-Stars is finally going offline for good in November. It was a bad omen for their live service push from the start, and now the circle is closing. They spent so much money trying to find the next Rocket League or Overwatch, and instead, they ended up with a graveyard of titles that never found an audience. It's clear that the strategy of throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks is over. Now, they are retreating to their strengths, high-end single-player cinematic experiences. It's a pivot away from the recurring revenue dream back to the prestige games that build the PlayStation brand.
It's a graveyard for live service right now, Marcus. But at least James Bond is doing his part to save the single-player experience. IO Interactive reported that 007 First Light sold 1.5 million copies in its first 24 hours. Critics are calling it the best Bond game since GoldenEye. They have managed to take the Hitman formula and infuse it with the cinematic flair and high-octane action required for the Bond license. The level design is being praised for its density and the way it rewards multiple playstyles, from traditional stealth to more aggressive gadget-based combat. It is a reminder that there is still a massive, hungry audience for games that have a beginning, a middle, and an end, without needing a battle pass or a daily login reward to feel valuable.
It's a massive win for IO. Even with lower Steam numbers than Hitman 2, the console performance is clearly carrying it. People want that couch experience for a spy thriller. And speaking of the future, Epic Games just casually dropped a teaser for Unreal Engine 6 during a Rocket League major. The dynamic lighting on those car models? Vanessa, it's a generational leap. They are calling it neural lighting, where the engine predicts light bounces using a dedicated hardware-accelerated core. It looks like a pre-rendered movie running in real time. If this is what the mid-gen refreshes are going to look like, the hardware manufacturers are going to have a busy 2027. Epic is once again positioning itself as the backbone of the entire industry, making sure every developer knows that the best tools are under their roof. It looks incredible, but it does make me wonder about games like The Witcher 4 that were already deep into development on Unreal Engine 5. Are they going to pivot? CD Projekt Red is already busy enough after they had to announce the Songs of the Past expansion for Witcher 3 early because it leaked on their own launcher. They just can't catch a break with security.
This expansion was meant to be the big anniversary surprise, adding a whole new region in Kuvar and several hours of new voice work from the original cast. But when the metadata for the update appeared on the public-facing storefront 3 weeks early, they had to scramble to get a trailer out. It's a mess, but at least the content itself looks like the high-quality storytelling we expect from the team.
That leak was classic CDPR. They were supposed to wait for the anniversary stream, but once the cat was out of the bag, they just leaned into it. We're getting more Geralt in 2027, and it looks like it might be his final send-off before Ciri takes the lead in the next mainline game. The expansion seems to be acting as a bridge, filling in gaps in the lore that fans have been speculating about for years. It's a smart way to keep the IP relevant while the main team grinds away on the next generation of Witcher games. Even if the leak spoiled the surprise, the hype is still through the roof, because Geralt remains one of the most beloved characters in gaming history. Providing a definitive conclusion to his journey is a debt they owe the fans.
Speaking of starting over, let's talk about the absolute chaos at Square Enix. For the 40th anniversary of Dragon Quest, they announced that Dragon Quest XII has been completely rebooted. They've even changed the name from The Flames of Fate to Beyond Dreams. This is a project that has been in development for over 5 years, and to see it essentially tossed in the bin and restarted from zero is a staggering admission of failure. They had initially promised a darker, more adult take on the series, but it seems that vision didn't resonate with the core demographics or the internal testers. It is a huge blow to their release schedule for the next 3 years, leaving a massive hole where their flagship RPG should have been.
They restarted from scratch, Vanessa. Executive producer Yosuke Saito said they hit too many hurdles and needed a team reshuffle. The darker tone seems to be gone in favor of something bright and exciting. It's a brave move, but man, fans have already been waiting since 2021. If you're going to reboot a 40-year-old franchise, you better be sure the new direction is bulletproof. Saito mentioned that the game design was becoming too bogged down in complex systems that didn't feel like Dragon Quest. By pivoting back to Beyond Dreams, they are trying to capture that sense of wonder that made the early games such a phenomenon. It is a massive gamble, but Square Enix needs a win that isn't just another Final Fantasy VII spin-off.
And if you want weird, look at the Crafton versus Unknown Worlds drama. Crafton is officially paying out a $250 million bonus to the Subnautica 2 devs, but the court documents revealed the CEO used ChatGPT to try and find ways to get out of paying the earnout. The AI literally told him it would be difficult to cancel, but he still formed a Project X task force to try and stall. It is one of the most bizarre corporate stories I have ever read. The logs show the CEO asking the LLM to analyze the contract for loopholes or performance clauses that hadn't been met. When the AI essentially told him he had to pay up, he ignored it and tried to create a secondary set of metrics to invalidate the bonus. It is a masterclass in how not to handle developer relations.
Using an LLM to try and dodge a $250 million contract? That is a new level of corporate creativity. But with Subnautica 2 selling 4 million copies in early access and making 100 million in a week, Crafton really didn't have a leg to stand on. The game is a verified juggernaut, expanding on everything the first game did while adding a co-op layer that the community has been begging for. The developers at Unknown Worlds earned every penny of that bonus by delivering a product that actually lived up to the massive hype. It's just a shame that the success had to be followed by such a messy legal battle. Hopefully, this payout settles the tension and lets them focus on finishing the game for full release.
It's a wild time to be a developer or a fan. Whether you're waiting for MW4 or mourning Destiny, the industry is clearly in a state of massive transition. We are seeing the old guards fall and new technologies like Unreal Engine 6 and AI integration into development and business strategies changing the rules of the game. It is unpredictable, often frustrating, but never boring. As we head into the summer showcase season, we are going to see exactly how many of these pivots pay off and which studios are going to be left behind in the dust of this new generation of this generation.
That is the truth. I'm Marcus Shaw, and that's the week in gaming news.
I'm Vanessa Calderon. Thanks for listening to Nerfed. Neural Newscast is AI-assisted, human-reviewed. View our AI transparency policy at neuralnewscast.com. Find us at Nerfed.ai.
This has been Nerfed on Neural Newscast, where games, culture, and strategy intersect.